Greetings everyone. Welcome to the training session, Health and Safety Awareness Training for Supervisors and Managers. Please note that this training is very important since management plays a key role in workplace health and safety and will be held accountable for workers' injuries. We hope you will be equipped with the necessary knowledge in handling health and safety matters after this session. Today's session covers the below topics. We will start with the general introduction of this training, then advise the supervisor's roles and responsibilities in health and safety. After learning why we are doing this, we will teach you how to lead the way in health and safety practices at work. Next, we will share the toolkit for supervisors that covers examples of common workplace hazards and how to avoid them. Of course, it is important for you to know what support you have if you can't handle certain situations. Lastly, we are expecting everyone to be a role model to employees. Today's training is designed to help you understand what OHSA expects from a supervisor. A supervisor refers to anyone who has charge of the workplace or authority over a worker. It could be a manager, a team lead, or a director. On top of the supervisor, we have the employer that has the highest authority in the workplace, as well as the greatest responsibility for health and safety. Supervisors are the next in line when it comes to health and safety responsibilities. Under the OHSA, employers must make sure supervisors are competent before appointing them and informed about any hazards in the work that you may supervise. Today's training focus is the general awareness of rights and responsibilities under OHSA. If you are interested in exploring other applicable knowledge, please feel free to visit the website of ontario.ca and you can get more resources. Step 1. Make a difference. In this topic, we will learn why supervisors are so important, what an internal responsibility system is, and the workers' responsibilities under OHSA. The OHSA expects supervisors to be the frontline guardians of workers' health and safety because they work closely with employees on a daily basis. Whenever a person is placed in the supervisor role, the responsibility and duty relating to the workers' health and safety come under supervision. As a supervisor, you are playing a lot of roles at the same time. Similar to a basketball game, you will be the coach, trainer, referee, cheerleader, and also a captain. Indeed, you are also a crucial part of the workplace's internal responsibility system, called IRS. What is IRS? It is a workplace safety system consisting of employers, supervisors, workers, health and safety representatives or JHSC members, and system partners. Each party plays its role in creating a healthy, safe, and productive workplace. From the historical data, new and young workers in Ontario are 4 times more likely to get hurt during the first month on the job than at any other time. This might be caused by a lack of experience and safety awareness. So, if you have any new and young workers in your department, you may want to pay extra attention to them and ensure they follow safety rules. How do you implement the OHS program? First, you must know OHSA and other regulations attached to it. As a supervisor, you must know about the Occupational Health and Safety Act and other applicable regulations. You do not need to have in-depth knowledge, but have to understand the basics and know where to seek help when health and safety matters arise. There are several regulations attached to OHSA. For example, WMIS regulation. If a worker needs to use chemicals or other hazardous materials, as a supervisor, you have to know what's expected from you under WMIS regulation. Hazards under WMIS can be flames, gas cylinders, corrosion, biohazardous, exploding bombs, etc. Second, you have to be the person enforcing that protective equipment is used. That means you must understand the requirements of the OHSA and your workplace safety rules. For example, if someone needs to work in a slippery environment, the safety shoe, non-slip shoe, is mandatory whenever the worker stays in the area. Thirdly, advise the workers about the applicable hazards. Every workplace has hazards. It could be something serious or a small paper cut in the office. As a supervisor, your duty is to tell workers about applicable hazards in their job. You must know the hazards and tell workers how to prevent them. In addition, you have to plan the work safely for workers. Your team members rely on your knowledge of the work to make sure it's done safely. Lastly, you have to ensure workers know and follow through on the health and safety duties. And if you find someone violating the health and safety procedures, you have to give him or her immediate feedback and request corrections right away. Workers need to know that repeated violations on the health and safety policy will result in progressive disciplinary actions. Here are a few questions you can use as a checklist to see if you have done the job correctly. Do I understand the OHSA and regulations that apply to the work we do? Can I explain these sections of the OHSA and regulations to the workers? Am I informing the workers about hazards? Have I planned the work so that it can be done safely? Am I making sure the workers wear or use the protective gear, clothing, and devices as required by the employer? Can you think of any other questions to ask yourself? We have learned the role and responsibility of supervisors. So, what are those for employers and workers? In the next few slides, we will learn about this. The OHSA requires employers to appoint a competent person as a supervisor. Ensure the appointed supervisor is familiar with OHSA and potential hazards at the workplace. He or she must also know the OHSA regulations and any potential or actual dangers at work under the supervision. Another duty the employer must do is create the health and safety policy, post it at the workplace, and renew it on a yearly basis if it has 5 or more regular employees. Additionally, employers must make sure workers and supervisors know about hazards in the work they do and provide them with information, instruction, and supervision to protect their health and safety. They must also take steps to eliminate or control workplace hazards, make sure PPE is equipped, and do everything reasonable to protect workers from being hurt. Supervisors make a great difference in the workplace, but it is not singular work. Everyone needs to do their part to maintain a safe workplace, including the employer, supervisor, and worker. We have completed the topic Step 1 and learned about the supervisor's role and others' role in health and safety. Now let's learn the next step, Lead the Way. This topic covers teamwork in IRS, effective communication, and workers' rights under OHSA regulation. To communicate effectively, you need to be good at both listening and speaking. You need to listen and try to understand the employee's point of view, support them when they need help, and always set a good example. You need the support of the employer to carry out your supervisor duties. You should also inform the employer of any health and safety concerns, even if you can handle them by yourself. Next, let's talk about the 3 rights of workers under OHSA: the right to know, the right to participate, and the right to refuse unsafe work. The right to know means that the worker has the right to know any potential or actual workplace hazards and how to perform job duties safely. Employers must support this right by informing the worker about the safety hazard in his or her job, providing the training as how to perform jobs safely, making sure the supervisor knows the job and has the health and safety awareness. The right to participate means that workers have the right to be part of the health and safety initiatives or practices. For example, ask questions, raise concerns, report health and safety violations, give feedbacks, or be part of the health and safety committee. Depending on the employee numbers, the OHSA has different requirements for employers. Our company has more than 50 employees, so we have a JHSC committee that consists of 2 management representatives and 2 worker representatives. The JHSC stands for the Joint Health and Safety Committee. It has many powers, including identifying workplace hazards, requesting the employer to get health and safety concerns addressed, or even issue a work stoppage in urgent safety-sensitive cases. The JHSC members conduct monthly workplace inspections for health and safety hazards and hold quarterly formal meetings. The employer must respond to recommendations for JHSC in a timely manner, no later than 21 days upon receipt. The OHSA strictly forbids the employer or a supervisor from firing, disciplining, or even threatening a worker for doing what the OHSA expects them to do. Next, let's see what is meant by the right to refuse. The right to refuse does not mean a worker can say no to the assigned tasks at any time. It is limited to unsafe work only. For example, if a worker believes there's a hazard leading to potential injury when asked to perform a task, he or she can say no to it, and the management has a duty to investigate it before putting the worker back to work or assigning another worker to the job. As a supervisor, you must respect the right by taking every precaution reasonable to protect workers. If you encounter a refuse to work situation and do not know how to address it, please report to the HR department immediately. If you can't reach an agreement with the worker about safe work, you can also turn to Ministry of Labor inspectors for further assistance. Indeed, supervisors are also workers. You too may exercise the right to refuse unsafe work. Please keep in mind that as a supervisor, you can be a leader in making your workplace safe and healthy, but you cannot do it alone. Now that we know how important supervisors are in health and safety acts, here are a few toolkits you can refer to fulfill your OHSA obligation. Knowing the hazards in your workplace is the base to fulfill your obligation. You must know what potential or actual hazards your workplace has, how to eliminate or control them, and understand the severity of combined hazards. This slide shows some common workplace hazards in Ontario. Repeating the same movements over and over, slipping, tripping, or falling, motorized vehicles, using or working near machinery, workplace violence, some less apparent hazards like chemicals, fumes, toxic dust or germs, and viruses in the workplace. Some of these hazards can make a worker very sick. Sometimes the worker gets sick right away, and other times they don't know until months or even years later. Next, we need to know how to deal with hazards. There's a model called RACE to help us deal with hazards systematically. R stands for recognize, A stands for assess, C stands for control, and E stands for evaluate. When these steps are done in order, you can deal with hazards effectively. How do we recognize the hazards? Here are a few steps you can follow. Watch the work as it's being done. Talk to workers about the work and the areas where work happens. Participate in workplace inspections. Look at reports and records that your workplace has about the work. Listen to the concerns workers have about the work they are doing. To assess the hazard, you can ask these questions. How does the hazard compare to legislation, standards, and guidelines? How can the worker get hurt or sick? How likely is the hazard to affect worker health and safety? How badly could the worker get hurt or sick? Now we need to learn how to control the hazard. The safest thing to do is to remove the hazard. If removing the hazard is not possible, look for ways to prevent workers from coming in contact with them. If neither of the above solutions protect the worker, workers can use protective equipment, devices, and other materials to help keep them safe. It's your obligation as a supervisor to make sure workers use this equipment. Lastly, we can evaluate how well the hazard controls are working after procedures are implemented. As a supervisor, you have to educate the worker about the safety procedures in place and monitor if they are sticking to the rules. Sometimes, workers may come up with new ideas to improve the practice, and we should be open to communication. There are some other supports supervisors can refer to, such as JHSC members, external sources such as legislation, standards, industrial codes, or an external consultant. As a supervisor, you have the power to stop the work until you know it is safe to continue. The RACE process is just a way to help you deal with hazards. As a supervisor, you have to ensure the workers understand the information you gave them and follow the procedures. This is an ongoing practice, and you have to handle problems when they arise. If someone comes to you with a health and safety concern, you have to take every reasonable precaution into consideration. Supervisors have greater responsibilities than workers in terms of health and safety. If you fail to comply with the OHSA requirements and a workplace injury occurs, you will be held accountable, and the consequence could be jail time depending on the severity of the incident and the non-compliance. Now let's move to step 4, support to management. This chapter will discuss what type of support you have when carrying out health and safety practices as a supervisor. As a supervisor, getting the help you need is fundamental to ensure you are performing well in your leadership role. Many supervisors are promoted to that position because they were good at their previous job. However, now that they are a supervisor and their duties have changed, do they know everything they need to know about the new role? You may know a bit about the OHSA and the various regulations attached to it, but do you know enough about the specific requirements in the OHSA that apply to your workplace? You may have the necessary experience in the work you are being called upon to supervise, but do you know enough about what's actually involved in supervising workers? A successful supervisor is one that displays various degrees of competence. The OHSA requires the employer to ensure that the supervisor is a competent person and emphasizes 3 things in particular that you need in order to be competent at your job. If you are still unsure about your role as a supervisor, there are other solutions. If you feel that you don't have the necessary knowledge, training, and experience to carry out those duties, it's important that you talk to the employer. Perhaps you need to attend a training course on the OHSA and regulations. Maybe you need to learn more about how to recognize, assess, and control hazards and to evaluate the hazard controls. Maybe you want to know more about leadership skills and communication, about how to develop your listening skills, and about what the workers expect from their supervisor. Remember that your employer needs to give you the tools to become a competent supervisor. The Internal Responsibility System, IRS, plays a vital role in an organization's health and safety. For example, fixing a health and safety problem will sometimes be out of your control or may cost a lot of money to fix. If that happens, you need to let your employer know that you need help solving the problem. Bring the ideas you got from the workers and from the JHSC, and together you can figure out the best way to eliminate or control the hazard. The workers need to know that you will do what's right for them, and you need to know that the employer will do what's right for everyone. The OHSA supports a coordinated approach to workplace health and safety by giving everybody duties according to their position. The higher your position is, the more duties you have. When you put all of these duties together, you get a strong IRS in the workplace. Now let's discuss how you can get help both inside and outside of your workplace. Sometimes a worker will ask you a question and you just don't know the answer. Often, the answer is right there in your workplace. You can find answers from the following: the workplace health and safety policy, the safety data sheets that come with the hazardous materials, the operating manuals for equipment, and the recommendations of the JHSC or IRS. Sometimes you might not understand what the OHSA and regulations are telling you to do, and even your employer might not fully understand. That's when you need outside help. For example, the Ministry of Labour website offers many helpful resources. Ontario also has a health and safety system that is made up of many organizations. Additionally, we have government agencies helping with health and safety compliances. These include the Ministry of Labour, Health and Safety Ontario, Workers' Health and Safety Centre, Occupational Health Clinics for Ontario Workers, and Workplace Safety and Insurance Board. If you would like to receive more information regarding Ontario's health and safety system, please visit the Canadian Centre for Occupational Health and Safety. They have information fact sheets on their website. This external help is not just for you, it's for sharing with others in your workplace. To be a good supervisor, you have to do more than just know things. You need to put them into action. Now let's move on to the final topic of today's session. Step 5. Be a role model. In order to be a successful supervisor, you must understand how to send the right message to your employees. You need to be a role model for safety at all times. As a supervisor, you need to follow the workplace safety procedures, wear your PPE, and stay safe. If you don't do these things, others will think it is okay to not follow the workplace procedures, as people are watching you and learning from what you do. You help the workers choose the safe path every time, You can help them by being easy to talk to and answering their questions. The best thing you can do is to practice what you preach. That means always complying with the OHSA and following the healthy and safe work practices in your workplace. As a supervisor, it is crucial to understand your legal obligations and put what you know into action at all times. This will allow for a strong IRS to form. If the employer knows about a hazard and doesn't take steps to eliminate or control it, as well as make sure the workers are told about it and how to deal with it, that employer is not doing what the law requires. If the supervisor knows about a hazard and doesn't explain to the workers how to deal with it, that supervisor is not doing what the law requires. If the worker knows about a hazard and doesn't report it to the supervisor or the employer, that worker is not doing what the law requires. The IRS is all about people cooperating to recognize, assess, and control hazards in the workplace and to evaluate hazard controls. Every supervisor has a key role to play in that system. Congratulations! You have completed this awareness training. We hope this training has been useful in your day-to-day work. The employer has the responsibility to keep record of your training. Each supervisor should keep a copy of the Supervisor Health and Safety Awareness in 5 Steps workbook for future reference. Knowing your health and safety rights and duties and the duties of your supervisor is an important first step in staying safe on the job. If you don't feel that you know enough to carry out your health and safety duties as a supervisor, talk to the employer and make sure you get the information you need. By always showing your commitment to health and safety, the people you supervise will follow your example. You can make a difference. Thank you for your attention during this training.